Electrocast.
Knock that fire down, 19.
Copy, Captain. Let's move.
ABC Thursdays.
Firefighters, we're family.
Station 19 is back for its final and hottest season yet.
The subject has explosive chemicals.
Get down!
With fiery romances.
You're the love of my life.
And Andy is finally in charge.
I'm gonna be the best damn captain the station has ever seen.
Station 19. All new Thursdays, 10/9 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or whatever movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host Iris and I'm here with my older brother who insists on tormenting me.
Wesley with The Haunting of Madrigal House.
Also known as Encanto. Available on Disney+.
The Tio under the stairs.
That's pretty good. Bruno the Boring.
Bruno the Boring?
How about Encanto no no no?
That's pretty good too. Did you note that Bruno looks an awful lot like a Colombian linguine? And he hangs out with rats.
Linguini from Ratatouille? That's hilarious. He also makes a Let It Go reference, which my daughters did not miss.
What did they think? Were they scared at all?
Paloma consistently skips some parts, yeah, that have to do with Bruno. Mm-hmm.
See, because they set Bruno up really well, where he's this nefarious figure, and he's got the pencil-thin mustache and the Mr. Burns fingers.
Mr. Burns fingers? What does that mean?
Like the steepled, excellent fingers.
Mr. Burns from Simpsons fame?
Yeah, and when we don't talk about Bruno when he's first introduced, and he's 7 feet tall and has rats down his spine and stuff.
Right. Camillo does shapeshift into the correct Bruno, but then also scarier versions of Bruno.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't notice that about Ratatouille, but good call. Mirabel is 15, and they have their gift ceremony at what, 7 or 8?
I guess so, based on Antonio.
So, half of her life, he's been back there. And I guess that's enough time to go crazy. But why did he leave for her? How did that help her?
I'm not exactly sure. I'm a little bit hazy on some of the finer details, the intricacies of Casa Madrigal. And I thought I was pushing you to watch this movie, not just to review it. I mean, look at this, get the Lin-Manuel Miranda connection. How are you going to avoid it?
What, with Moana or?
Yeah. He said that he wanted this movie to live in the same universe, the same world as Moana, albeit in Colombia, but I don't see how that's a thing. He hasn't clarified whether or not that actually came to pass.
Maybe it's the magical realism thing, because I guess there's full-on demigods and demons in Moana.
Yeah.
But Encanto's more about the magical realism and then literal magic with the Encanto.
Yeah, maybe it's the compartmentalized magical realism of the culture. And in Hawaii, there are gods and volcanoes and stuff. And in Colombia, there's magical realism in the house. And that's just a part of everyday life.
Maybe he was talking about in terms of mannerisms because, boy, Mirabel was definitely channeling some Moana.
Yeah?
Her aw shucks, pluckiness and stuff?
Yeah, maybe that's a Disney thing, a current iteration of Disney thing. It's not too far from Moana. I think it's pretty safe to say those two movies were in different stages of development, but at the same time, given that it takes 5 years to make one of these.
Yeah, I understand that Lin-Manuel Miranda and his team were in Colombia doing research in 2018. Prepping for Encanto and steeping themselves in the culture and stuff. But Moana, at this point is pretty far back. Moana was 2016. That's when Paloma was born.
As a stop on the Disney train. I guess that seems like a long time ago. But it's not this is the Lin-Manuel Miranda movie. He came to Moana fairly late. So for this one, he wanted to be on the ground floor, as soon as it's starting. But Moana, they were hey, we got this movie. You want to write some songs for it? And he's like, sure.
He obviously has a stamp all over You're Welcome. And I can hear some of his signature stuff in, obviously all of these songs.
You think? I mean, there were a few things that I didn't necessarily understand right out of the gate about Encanto. One thing I did understand is the real miracle of Encanto is subtitles. We definitely need subtitles for Lin-Manuel Miranda's more rappy songs.
Oh, for sure. And then also there's full-on Spanish tracks. But I understand that he wrote all of these songs in both Spanish and English.
Well, Dos Oruguitas is performed in Spanish in the movie and then in English in the credits. So when that movie is inevitably nominated for an Oscar, I wonder which version they will perform during the broadcast.
If there is a broadcast.
However,
let's not get crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the verses of that song are in English and in Spanish, but even in the English version, he goes into the verses with Dos Oruguitas, because Kelly and I decided that caterpillar is not an aesthetically pleasing sounding word.
Isn't that the song that's sung by the famous Colombian singer-artist?
Yeah, I guess he's like worldwide famous, for Spanish singers.
I mean, he's great. He and the voice actor singer for Felix, who is married to Tia Pepa, he's also really great.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of opportunity to shine, or, he doesn't have a lot of room to sing because Tia Pepa is like, are you singing this or am I?
Right. We're watching her facial expressions towards him consistently. He'll chime in and stuff and have his part in the song, and she's kind of glaring at him and giving him the stink eye.
My other favorite performance is that of Toucan. Voiced by the infamous Alan Tudyk.
Right. Warsh from Serenity and Firefly. Yeah, that's it. Kelly was kind of disappointed because he's been in ever since Wreck-It Ralph, he's been in every single Disney animated movie. Now that's not Pixar. They were like, we got to get Warsh in here, and what do we got? What's left? The Toucan. But still, the Toucan inspires. He's one of my favorite characters, and he inspires what I think is the best line of the movie. And that's during my favorite sequence in the movie, when she finally goes to Bruno's tower, and inexplicably, like every other room in this place, it's gigantic. And she falls down the sandhill, and then she has the Indiana Jones sequence. But she looks up, and she's like, well, at least I'm not alone. And nope, you flew away immediately.
It's all about the delivery of that line, but it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's pretty good consistently. I think that the actress who plays Mirabel, whose name escapes me, and it is...
Mirabel is played by Stephanie Beatrice from In the Heights fame.
Maybe not just her delivery, but everyone really solid. And this movie turns pretty quickly, and the songs are going, and you got to slip in the stuff, and we're grateful for the subtitles. But I think a lot of good performances in terms of dialogue delivery in this movie. It's really sharp.
Interesting.
No?
I would qualify that and say the performances and the dialogue delivery, pretty sharp. Story, kind of meandering. I wouldn't say the story is the tightest of all Disney animation stories.
Well, I think it was cute and it was pretty contained. It was in the one house, except for the obligatory parental, in this case, the abuelito's death sequence, where he's apparently hacked to death by machetes in rural Colombia. But otherwise, in this house, that said, there were a couple things that I couldn't track, and I've seen this movie like you a number of times, but a little bit differently.
Really? Wait, but what on earth prompts you to see Encanto more than once?
Why don't you take a guess?
Kelly Ray?
Yes, man, dancing around and family madrigal and like running all over the place and stuff, and we're going to bed, and she's like getting ready for bed. We don't talk about Bruno, no.
I mean, I have videos of Paloma doing the same. Maybe we should swap.
Look, I really wanted to review this movie, not only because there have been some really good reviews that we've done, Frozen and Luca and stuff, but it also is because we come from such unique perspectives. I often don't see them more than once because, I'm an adult, but you have to watch them constantly.
Oh, constantly.
However, not exactly closely. It's always on in the background. And
yes.
And I think Frozen was a movie that you were kind of annoyed at because you had seen it so many times, and yet I was forcing you to sit down and watch it critically.
Correct.
You're just hearing it in the background the whole time.
Yes, and that's the problem with Encanto. I had seen every part of Encanto multiple times, but never in order. And so I'm piecing this story together, and then I have to sit down and watch it like again after hearing it all day. But I have to tell you, Encanto has grown on me. The first time I watched it with the girls, admittedly, I popped up here and there to get a snack and clean the kitchen and make tomorrow's lunch and feed the cat and blah, blah, blah. And in that first viewing, or first few viewings, I was like, it's okay. But now it's grown on me, for sure. But also, I have open questions. Why does him leaving help Mirabel? Why did he, quote unquote, do it for her? What is Mirabel's gift? Does she actually have a gift, or does she just revitalize the casita at the end and that wasn't actually a gift? What is her mission? She sets out to save the miracle and then moments later says, how do I save a miracle? Like, what does she actually set out to do other than to just kind of poke around and stir things up?
Tio Bruno says directly at the end when, what's-his-name hands her the doorknob. He says, you're the real gift. What real gift? I did figure out, however, what Mirabel's superpower was. The ability to stop time and deliver entire musical numbers in bullet time. Right after Antonio gets his gift, she goes into that weird sequence.
She matrixizes the family photo and is walking around.
And each person, by way of, the original song, the family madrigal song, and even we don't talk about Bruno, the songs really serve to set up everyone's gift and see how it's unique and relevant to their characters. And in a way, it's kind of a ham-handed way to inform those characters. Their personalities are so clearly evinced by their actions and thus by the deployment of their gifts. Like, who is that character? Oh, she's the flower one. Look at all the flowers she's making. And so in that way, a little bit of a cheat. But here's what I came up with. Latinx, right? Mm-hmm. They're the LatinX-Men, each with individual superpowers, which, when they come together in a very special house, can make wonderful things happen.
Wow.
LatinX-Men.
Pat yourself on the back, Wes.
I already did. This is the best kind of animation for me. A lot of things about my concepts of animation are changing, not having kids. And I was like, Pixar can do no wrong. And then Pixar did Cars. And I was like, oh. And then it did Cars 2. And I was like, oh. Okay. But I look at a movie and I'd be like, it's not Pixar, though. What is this? Planes, Fire, and Rescue? And then Wreck-It Ralph kind of changed that. It was cutesy, but it still didn't feel heavy like a Pixar movie to me. But this is pretty close. It didn't even matter to me that Encanto wasn't Pixar because, frankly, it was a lot better than Coco. And if it comes down to a head-to-head race, which I do think it's going to do for the Academy Award this year, I don't think Luca stands a chance. Can't get away from the songs. I resisted it. I don't think I'm resisting it anymore. Not only are the songs catchy and really good exposition, at least for this movie, but also did you notice that they don't ever continue or further the story? With the possible exception of, we don't talk about Bruno, every one of them lapses into this hyper-realistic fantasy sequence.
Which was kind of my problem with the songs. They didn't really propel the story forward. They were more like these stop-down character study moments, which I guess gives us an additional insight into the family, which is the driving force of the film. The songs had nothing to do with driving that convoluted plot forward. It was more about, hey, let's get to know and love the characters that make up this family.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that was kind of a weird magic that it worked on me because typically totally stopping down for a non-story moving moment is what I kind of butt up against. Whereas when we go into fantasy sequences, it feels somehow okay because I get that this is a compartmentalized song. This seems more in keeping with things like The Emperor's New Groove, where it becomes fantasy and grand and she has giant moving flower sculptures and stuff. And
yeah, Luisa's riding the donkey corn and battling Cerberus.
I'm kind of stuck on this idea that this is a Disney movie that stands up to the competition, not just because of popularity, because frankly, I saw Frozen maybe twice. I saw Moana maybe 1.5 times, and they were kind of forgettable. But Encanto, we watched it a couple of times, and then as I do sometimes on a Sunday night, I'll sit Kelly down and be like, hey, it's like 8 o'clock, but we got to watch this movie because I have to review it. And she'll be like, what movie? And then I just put on Encanto and she's happy. So I've already seen this movie 2 full times by the time I sat down to watch it a 3rd time for the critical review.
Wow. But didn't Encanto, kind of like Luca, come out of nowhere? Like, I wasn't anticipating this. I didn't get any of the El Capitan movie premiere emails until after it was already out on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because of theatrical release, because this wasn't behind a paywall. I don't think it was expected to do what it's doing. It's kind of out of the blue, but I think it's in line with this sort of don't need to promote it, don't need to spend hundreds of millions in worldwide publicity when you drop it on Disney Plus, knowing that everyone is still stuck in the house. But I think it speaks to a larger issue. Do you know what the next Pixar movie is?
No.
Like, it's coming up. There's 2 of them this year. Turning Red is in like 2 months. And usually we know about that stuff years in advance, right?
Yeah.
And later this year we have Lightyear. And it's like, maybe these aren't the tentpoles that I remember them to be. Because Pixar was so far ahead of the game, especially for CG animation. But you know, Pixar people leave and other people come on, and those talented Pixar artists go to other places. Some of it's still within Disney. And so they've all kind of equalized and stabilized to where it almost is as though you can't tell the difference anymore. That to me is both shocking and sad. Pixar has, I think, sort of lost some of its cachet and frankly some of its fun because it doesn't have the music, which Disney dropped for a good long while. And when it came back, boy, it came back with a vengeance.
With Frozen.
The first successful return to the songs, I think Tangled was pretty close. And then, of course, Frozen blew it out of the water again.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Toulousma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Toulousma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
What's your favorite Encanto song?
The We Don't Talk About Bruno song. I think everyone gets their say. It's complex. It's, what's your word? Recursive. And that we'll return to earlier melodies after we've dismissed it, after we've moved on, and they're singing them in the background. And there's unique, everyone has kind of their own melody, their own story within the song, and it's a different rhythm.
Not a cloud in the sky.
A different tempo within the song where it's just kind of everyone singing. And as Mozart said in Amadeus, it's not noise, it's music. And in music, you can do whatever you want. So that was really good because they got their character moments, because it was exposition for Bruno, because it was fun and fast and clever. It spans multiple characters. We go from outside to inside. Did you note in that song that Bruno is in the background?
No, I didn't.
They're doing their little dance, and she talks about being able to hear him in the walls. And that's another thing. They're delivering... Dolores. They're also dropping information and hints and stuff in the background, kind of very quietly, because while everyone else is singing about not talking about Bruno, she's like, I can hear him. I can still hear him in the walls. And then they show him in the background. He's lurking around and he has that green prophecy-like glow. And then like when the beat kicks in and you can see him grooving on the balcony upstairs. It's pretty fun. And of course, we didn't discover that. We saw it. We're like, look. But then other people had pointed it out for sure.
All I'm seeing in my mind is like Bruno hanging amongst the chains, like the xenomorph.
Yeah.
And you being like, he's right there.
Yeah. There's one of the producers, one of the writers, I think, that had also worked on The Exorcist and who had worked on The Haunting of Hill House. And one of the strengths of that show, which of course you didn't watch because you never watch shows. Why don't you watch series? How come you never watch series, especially when I recommend them? The Haunting of Hill House has a lot. If you're looking around, there are things that will terrify you if only you tune your eyes in the right direction. And so I was looking all over the place for Bruno in the other songs. Once you know he's there, then I'm looking for him everywhere, like him peeking out from behind the picture or whatever. Anyway.
Right. That's probably one of the few songs that's effective in driving the story forward because they're also setting up the engagement dinner. And Mirabel has her little musical interlude where she's like, don't screw it up. And Camilla's like, your boyfriend's here. Like, all that's baked into the song as well.
It's a decent balance, too. And it's not something that they could be like, okay, we need a song about Bruno. And he goes off and writes a song, right? It's so closely tied in with the story. I'm not saying that the whole movie is tied together that well, but for those varying reasons. We don't talk about Bruno's probably my favorite number in this movie.
Kind of a cheat. Isn't it kind of a cheat to rhyme everything with no, no, no?
Aren't they all kind of a cheat? It's helpful, though, that his name is Bruno No, when in fact it wasn't before. It was Oscar.
Oh, that was a change for rhyming simplicity?
When he came back, they were like, Oscar, no, let's change it.
I mean, it sounds like you're getting pretty carried away with this film, like, or not in a bad way. Like, you got carried away, you bought the magic, you went with it. But when you step back and look at it critically, could you say perhaps that Lin-Manuel Miranda's early involvement with this kind of steered this film in a very musical direction and with less emphasis perhaps on the plot and story? I mean, when you're talking about basic story structure, who is the villain in Encanto? Abuela?
For me, it was definitely Abuela, and I was convinced that Abuelo was haunting the house because of the way she mishandled him. And I thought when she started blaming Mirabel for everything, we're losing the miracle because of you. Your grandpa died because of you, or whatever she said. It was kind of like Phantasmic when the witch turns into the dragon and starts spitting fire. I thought like Abuela was going to go nuts and turn into like Cerberus or something. She's like, the power of my imagination. I thought for sure she was the villain of the piece and she was going to be revealed for the witch that she was.
Right. And with that right at the top, they set the tone, this is, let's just be clear, Abuela runs the show. But in the end, she's like, the magic is you. And it's not just part of you, it's all of you. You're the magic. And she's like all granny again.
Right, that's her job. I don't think that it's just Lin-Manuel Miranda. I do think, to your point, the music driving the story more than the plot is what makes this so fun and relatable for kids and Kelly Ray. But he was also, did you see Vivo?
No.
So Vivo is the non-Disney animated film also this year, featuring Lin-Manuel Miranda, where he does sing and he plays the part of a monkey who crosses the ocean to find someone in a non-Disney movie. And it was pretty weak, man. And there were lots of songs that he performed in it. And I was like, Vivo is almost completely forgettable as far as I'm concerned. But I feel like it's also not a Disney magic thing. Oh, I did have concerns. I did have confusion. I wasn't sure why the sister hugging was a thing. And even she said, why is hugging my sister a thing? I didn't actually see them hug. I guess they kind of held hands and they like were laughing in the flowers at the end. But they didn't have like the magical swirly embrace where the magic swirls around them and the house transforms with them as the pulsing heart or the epicenter of the magic when they were hugging. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't totally clear. I didn't get a lot of the prophecy stuff and the butterfly. But then again, we're not Colombian. And this is all Gabriel Garcia Marquez and, 100 Years of Solitude and stuff and magical realism.
Which, have you read that book?
No. But the point is, maybe culturally, this isn't in our wheelhouse automatically. Maybe we're learning things. Maybe the most I ever learned about Colombia was through Encanto.
Which, I'm happy for Colombians and South Americans. I think it's a nice counterpoint to their primos in Mexico, in Coco. The kids love it. Paloma pronounces it Encanto, like with a heavy Spanish accent. And when we play it on Alexa, they're dancing in the kitchen. And Aurelia, at the end of the first song, says, "What are you doing?" Because Abuela's line is not part of the song, so she fills it in. It's really cute.
That's pretty cute, man. I mean, it appeals to adults on, multiple levels and kids maybe on a base level, but also, that was the most important movies of my childhood. The ones that had the cadence and the musical resonance, even though they weren't musical movies. I think this movie hits a sweet spot because it can use the magical realism. It's fortuitous that Colombia and magical realism is a thing because they can definitely make everything in this house move and dance and sing, and it's fun, even though it's haunted and horrifying. but also the real stuff, where I talked about it stacking up against Pixar and their supposed actual realism, where the guy in Soul is walking around in almost a photorealistic depiction of New York. When the Encanto brings the house down, like, not figuratively, literally, when the casita crashes to the ground, that sequence will stand next to any Pixar sequence because it was really well done and realistic and terrifying.
It is a great sequence, and it ends beautifully with the house using its last bit of magic to protect Mirabel.
Yep.
And then it kind of falls over because it's now inanimate. That was very emotional. And then when the town comes in and they're like, we have no gifts, but we're many, I was like...
And that's very sweet, and it's also kind of scary and also kind of exorcisty and kind of Legion.
It's not we are gifts, we have no gifts, but we are many. It's like we are Legion.
Look, the house has collapsed. Now is our moment. And they charge up the hill with torches.
It's true. It's pretty sweet, but it can turn very easily, just like the Encanto enchantment can turn very easily into a haunted house.
Yeah, and it does.
Which, by the way, would this make a good Halloween party theme?
I don't know that people would get it, but sure, you could have the bathroom of terror be in the walls with Tio Bruno and the green eyes and stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes, with rats and stuff.
One day.
Yes. Good one. I'm looking at the one sheet, which I'll probably design with our quote, and it's so magical with the butterflies, and I think there's the jaguar hanging out, and I think there's a capybara in the corner.
There is.
And donkeys with rainbows, and it is beautifully done. It's so colorful. It's so magical. There's kind of a lot of people to track. It's kind of dominated by songs and not so much by a very tightly constructed plot, but a lot that's wonderful and magical that makes the other stuff forgivable. I'll go with good.
Well, good. I'm going with it totally. And that's not entirely devoid of influence from Kelly Ray. But being forced to sit down is not something I would say happened to me for this movie. I voluntarily watched it a third time because I knew that I had to examine it critically. I think the movie Encanto is a success, and I think it's going to find an even larger audience that it already has. Invariably, we will have a crappy sequel, and we will have rides at Disneyland and stuff. I understand that Mirabel is still with her green glasses walking around Disney's California Adventure. But whatever.
Like a giant felt head Mirabel, or
No.
like a Disney princess, like woman?
No, there are actually Colombians in the world. You can get a nice looking Colombian lady or a Latina lady and have her wear glasses, and then she's Mirabel with her dress.
Right.
And there are lots and lots of details. I watched all the stuff on the costumes or the CG outfits of the characters and how they all reflect that Bruno has little hourglasses on his poncho and stuff, and Mirabel has her butterflies and junk, and it's all very keenly and finely crafted in a way that I think works. Sometimes all the attention and stuff goes to waste. And in this case, I don't think it did.
Yes, we talk about Encanto.
And like any movie, I want to go and have, what are they called? They're not empanadas. They're not oruguitas. What are they?
Oruguitas, isn't that caterpillar?
Right.
They are empanadas.
No, they're not. They're cheese encantos or whatever.
Arepas.
Arepas, yes. We need to now make arepas while singing and dancing to these songs.
I'm sure the girls would love it. Man, I may not be Bruno, but I see a lot of Encanto in my future. I'm kind of bracing myself for it.
A little bit relieved that maybe it's taken up some of the Moana in their lives.
In the sense that Bean hasn't been asking to wear her Frozen dress and Frozen braid, which constantly fall off and need to be adjusted. That's nice.
Okay. Next Halloween, Mirabel.
I mean, but there is something to be said about how dominating and immersive this film is for them.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think that this one is wholesome and fun, and that it's okay for them to be all fanatics over. I'm calling it right now, man. Best Animated Feature 2021, Encanto.
And there you got it. That's Wes's prediction and the end of our discussion on Disney's Encanto. Available on Disney Plus. You got a totally from Wes and a good from Iris. Let us know what you think about Encanto, 818-835-0473, and send us your videos of your kids doing their amazing and adorable Encanto dances, or whatevermovies@gmail.com, or whatevermovies on Instagram. Thanks for listening to our discussion on Encanto, and we'll see you next time.
Electricast. Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage, behind the scenes of show business, spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your host for the Candle Power Hour.
Welcome, explorers of the human experience. This is Let's Talk Soul, and I'm your host, Claudia Monicelli. We're not afraid of the great mysteries of existence here. Soul versus consciousness, we're on it. Spirituality versus science, we've got that covered too. Join us in navigating these profound topics with wisdom, curiosity, and a dash of audacity. Whether you're a spiritual veteran or just starting your journey, Let's Talk Soul is your passport to the unknown. Let's Talk Soul, diving into the depths of the human spirit. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Electricast.